Hi, everybody, and welcome to another edition of UNLV Research Files. I'm your host, Gary Waddell. Tonight, we're going to talk to the Harry Reid Silver State Research Award winner. We'll learn about a new approach to treat primary brain tumors and explore some new treatments for C. diff, which is a secondary infection that follows the use of antibiotics in patients with suppressed immune systems. First, though, Tom Piechota is here to bring us up to date on what's happening in the world of research at UNLV. Tom, thank you for coming in.
My pleasure.
School's out.
School's out.
You're going into the summer months.
Yeah.
Does everything slow down and stop?
No, it doesn't at all. Boy, we kick into another gear, I think, around here in the summer months. You know, I like to talk about us being a 12-month campus. You know, and 12-month campus is certainly from a research standpoint. We have a lot of people doing their research during the summer, working with students, developing new proposals. In fact, today, just this morning, I was working with a meeting with a group of faculty that were going through a proposal development institute that we have for them to develop really strong competitive proposals that we submit to federal agencies. And this is very competitive, so we want to make sure they're strong proposals. They work with mentors and make sure that there's good alignment there. And, you know, this is something we're being really intentional about. And, you know, there's a lot of activity going on here in the summer, both with faculty and students working on research. You can have the best ideas in the world, but if you can't convince somebody that they need to help you do it, it's tough, right? Yeah, that's right. You know, I just came from another meeting. We're working with the Clark County Fire Department. We're working on an FAA proposal on the use of drones for emergency and fire purposes. So we're hoping to get support in that area too. Wow.
One of your doctoral students just won the Shannon Bybee Award for work on the efficacy of treatment of problem gamblers. Tell us a little bit about that award. You must be proud.
Yeah, we are. Sarah St. John in our so working with our International Gaming Institute, you know, we talk a lot about wanting centers of excellence at UNLV. That's a real great example of a center of excellence, our International Gaming Institute. It builds off of what we should be known for, right? You know, hospitality and gaming.
Absolutely.
Bo Bernhard has done a great job in terms of heading up that institute. He's got great doctoral students working with him. She's done some good work in terms of problem gambling. And doing survey work with people with those addictions with that also, and really looking at those societal issues. These are really important things for us to be working on.
On one of the previous programs, I think we did something with Varian Medical Systems. You've entered into an agreement with them. Tell us a little about that.
Yeah, we love to be able to partner with the business community, you know, to advance research and just to help build research at the university too. And Varian was a great example of being able to do that. Varian does a lot of things with developing X-ray technologies, cargo imaging technologies. They donated some equipment to us in terms of a particle accelerator. And we
just had one lying around.
Yeah, we just had one lying around. These are expensive pieces of equipment.
Exactly.
And they donated it to us. We have it in our accelerator facility now. And it's a great partnership where we can use it for research and development, whether this is in cargo imaging or X-ray technology. One of the people you're going to have on tonight, Steen Madsen, works on it in health physics. But we allow them to come in and use it for business development purposes too. So it's a great kind of win-win for each of us.
You know, every time I tell somebody I'm doing the show and explain to them about it, they say, oh, UNLV does research? Yeah, it's a huge part of what you do here.
Yeah, it's a huge part of what we do, and we want to continue to grow it, both, you know, like I said, working with federal agencies who support it, but also working with the business community also.
Very good. Tom, thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
When we come back, we will talk to the winner of the Silver State Research Award. Stay with us.
Oh, hey, bud.
Oh.
Where are you headed?
Just gonna hang out.
It's a school night. With Gary and Todd?
Yeah.
Not sure about those two. I've been meaning to ask you. This is tougher than I thought. Is there any drinking going on in this crowd?
No.
I hope not, because alcohol can lead you to say things and do things that you really wish you hadn't. Isn't this what you're supposed to say?
I know.
So if any of your buddies ever pressure you to take a drink, just tell them you promised your dad you wouldn't. I'd do anything to keep you safe.
Okay, I will.
I hope this is working.
I promise. Love you too, Dad.
They really do hear you.
Brian.
Yeah?
So start the conversation even before they're teenagers.
Good idea.
For tips on what to say, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, going out like that?
Yeah, why?
Well, what would the neighbors think?
I see you! Look what I have. Mr. Bird, remember? Bark, bark, bark. We're just playing. We're just playing on trying to get you out of here.
Even still.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who don't need perfection. They need you.
NFC, AFC, offensive linemen, defensive tackles, quarterbacks, and cornerbacks are all living united to ensure the academic success of millions of kids in our communities all the way to graduation day. But that won't happen without you. So take the pledge at unitedway.org. Make a difference in the life of a child. Suit up like your favorite NFL players and become a volunteer reader, tutor, or mentor with United Way.
Welcome back. Joining me now is Ramona Denby-Brinson, a social work professor and senior resident with the Lincy Institute right here in Las Vegas. Thanks for coming by to join us.
Thank you.
This is kind of cool. You won the Harry Reid Silver State Research Award.
Yes.
Tell us about that. That's exciting.
Yeah, it is quite an honor too. The Silver State Research Award is given to faculty who have a body of research that really has had an impact here locally, and there's really 3 criteria that they use to judge your work. I've been at UNLV for about 17 years, and so it's the entirety of your research. They look to see the impact you've had with respect to economic development. Your work has to have been judged as significant within your own discipline through whatever metrics your discipline uses. In my case, in social work, it's peer-reviewed journals, external funding, the extent to which your work is used and cited. That always helps. Yes. And then most importantly is the extent to which your work has had an impact on a pressing social issue. And while that could have national implication, it has to have been relevant to our residents here in Nevada. And with this, or at the same time, you got a $1.4 million grant to continue research? We did. We were excited about that. I would imagine. Yeah, yes. Really good research support in the social sciences. And what it does, it allows us to take our research findings and translate those into policy and practice. We research children's mental health issues and child welfare issues. And so some of the interventions we've been looking at for the past few years that have proven to be effective, we now get to train practitioners. We'll train about 108 of them over the next 3 years to deliver our intervention with children that have been diagnosed with mental health disorders. Wow, you're really making a difference in people's lives with this. Yeah, we're excited about it. And I guess that's the point of the whole thing, right? Yeah, and what's so great about it is, we do applied research. A lot of research in the academy is the hard sciences, and we do social science research. And what that means is that we actually look at interventions in the real world and the extent to which they're going to make a difference, in our case here, in the lives of foster children and parents and families who are raising kids that have just profound mental health difficulties. Tell you, the foster system, we did stories when I was at Channel 8 about the problems there, and all anything that you can do to help them is certainly welcome, and certainly a godsend for the kids. Yeah, we're making some headway. We have a long road to go, as you know, having covered that system for a number of years. But what we've been able to do, and I don't by any means take credit for this, we have a team of researchers, and we work collaboratively with providers in the community, with the major public service agencies in the community. But we've able to actually reduce some of the re-abuse rates. So when kids come into care, we find that they are often re-abused when they're placed inappropriately or placed with caregivers who can't deal with their challenges. But through some of our interventions, we've seen those rates of re-abuse come down. We've seen depression go down. We've seen anxiety come down. So we're making some headway there. Where did your interest in all of this come from? I think it really kind of stemmed from my early career as a practicing social worker. My life before the academy, I worked at UMC in the emergency room. And there's an education. That's an education there. Trial by fire, I tell you. And just seeing some of the same patients literally come back. I would end my shift, and by the next day, patient that I had discharged right back. And I just thought to myself, there's got to be a different way. We've got to change systems. We talk about changing people, that's important, but the systems and environments around them, they need to change too. And so that really kind of put me back into the research end of things. Wow. Yeah. You're so busy. You're going to get some time for yourself this summer? Oh, gosh. Or do you work all summer like Tom says? You kick into another gear? We do. No rest for the weary. Actually, the longitudinal nature of our research requires us to recruit subjects year-round. So we'll be recruiting kids all through the summer and following up, interviewing them as well.
Well, congratulations, making a difference in lives, and I know you'll spend the 1.4 very well.
We will. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, Ramona. It's been a
Thank
pleasure
you.
talking to you. We'll dig some more from the research files when we come back.
I remember the moment clearly.
I'll never forget that moment.
As long as I live.
I realized at that moment, when we first saw the damage, these people really needed us. And I was going to make a difference, right here in my community. Together with local responders, we cleared trees and collapsed walls. We had to get to the family trapped beneath. As a citizen soldier, I made a difference.
Be there for your community at NationalGuard.com.
I don't think anyone captured my first steps on camera. I was the 5th kid, and by that time, first steps weren't a big deal. I was 16 and driving home with my brother Ben. A distracted driver hit us. Ben died on impact. I had 47 days in a hospital bed for reality to settle in. With a major spinal cord injury, doctors said I would never walk again. But deep down, I knew I would. I prayed that every day. Family, friends, strangers, all started to pray for me to be able to walk again. The progress has been slow, and the victories hard won, but I feel the prayers.
Whether you need support in a tragedy or just to make it through a bad day, prayer can make a difference. America, let's come together by believing with each other.
For someone to come alongside you and say, I'm going to believe with you, it means a lot.
Welcome back. Joining me now is Dr. Steen Madsen. He is a professor and chair of UNLV's Health Physics Department. Thank you for being here.
Oh, my pleasure.
Before we talk a little about your research, tell us about health physics. What is health physics?
Well, health physics is basically the field of radiation protection. And it really deals with the protection of humans from radiation, X-rays, and that type of thing. So usually when there's been some sort of an accident with X-rays, for example, like the accident in Japan, quite often the first responders on the scene are health physicists because they kind of determine the dose that's involved, and then they can provide guidance as to whether or not people should be evacuated.
We don't have a test site anymore, but I would imagine when they were doing nuclear testing that some of your people were involved in that. Or
that's correct. Yeah.
With at least your science, your bend in science.
Yeah, that's correct. There were health physicists out there. That's for sure.
Your research has to do with brain tumors.
That's correct.
How do the two relate?
Well, so with health physics, we're talking about radiation. There are other types of radiations besides the ones that people commonly think about. And people commonly think about X-rays, for example. But there's also radiation such as laser radiation and microwaves. And that type of radiation a health physicist might also deal with. And my particular area of research deals with lasers, and in particular laser therapies.
This was fascinating. I was reading about it, and when they go in on brain tumors and they operate and take the tumor out, they almost never get it all.
No,
it turns out. I mean, they think they do, but they don't.
That's correct. As you say, the frontline treatment really is surgery. The surgeon goes in and tries to get as much of the tumor that he can get. But for the very aggressive types of brain tumors, what happens is that a lot of these cancer cells they escape the center of the tumor and they start migrating into the brain. And so even though you take the main part of the tumor out, those cells remain inside the brain, and then they will then form other tumors later on, and that's why it's such a difficult disease to treat. And so the challenge really is to try to eliminate those cancer cells that have infiltrated into the brain.
So how does your research do that?
Well, we are working on a number of different techniques. Most of them are laser-based techniques, and one in particular we're using gold nanoparticles. And essentially what we do is...
Gold, like real gold that we mine out of the ground?
That's correct, yeah. Okay. They're very, very small types of gold particles. And when we inject them into or the theory is when we get them into the patient, then what we can do is we can shine a laser on those gold nanoparticles. And what happens is that the laser light is converted into heat. And then the heat cooks those cells that might be left inside the brain.
Wow. Where does an idea like that come from?
Well, nanoparticles have been around for a little while now, and people are starting to use them in medical applications. And so we started to look at that and maybe figuring out how we might be able to use these in the therapy of brain tumors. So it's the nanoparticle idea has been out there for a little while.
That's amazing. Where does your research stand?
Well, we do a lot of basic research in our lab in cells. We've also done some animal experiments as well that appear very promising, and so we're going to continue on with those animal experiments to try to refine all the different types of parameters. You know, how much laser light to give, how many nanoparticles to give in order to optimize the therapy.
I had a friend whose mother died about a year ago of a brain tumor, a very aggressive brain tumor. And I guess the question when you hear about any of this is, how soon might this become available to humans?
Yeah, that's a good question. There are a lot of different types of experimental therapies out there in brain tumors. And I think in the next, I would say probably the next 4 or 5 years, you'll start seeing some clinical trials with some of these types of brain tumor therapies.
Wow. Steen, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Your research has great applications in helping the world. We appreciate it. We wish you the best of luck.
All right. Well, thank you.
All right. When we come back, we will be with more of the research files. We're going to talk to a biochemistry professor. Stay with us.
Thank you for calling your GED Pep Talk Center. All right, now, are you ready for your GED Pep Talk?
Being nervous is okay. It just shows that you're serious about getting your diploma.
A lot of things are scary. Heck, I'm scared of clowns.
No quiero ir. Danny, no lo puedo hacer.
DMC, life in your pep talk style.
Just keeping it real, Debs, just keeping it real.
Whatever motivation you need, we've got a pep talk for you. Get your GED Pep Talk and find free classes at yourged.org.
Oh, hey, bud.
Oh.
Where are you headed?
Just gonna hang out.
It's a school night. With Gary and Todd?
Yeah?
Not sure about those two. I've been meaning to ask you. This is tougher than I thought. Is there any drinking going on in this crowd?
No.
I hope not, because alcohol can lead you to say things and do things that you really wish you hadn't. Isn't this what you're supposed to say?
I know.
So if any of your buddies ever pressure you to take a drink, just tell them you promised your dad you wouldn't. I'd do anything to keep you safe.
Okay, I will.
I hope this is working.
I promise. Love you too, Dad.
They really do hear you.
Ryan.
Yeah?
So start the conversation even before they're teenagers.
Good idea.
For tips on what to say, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
All the preparation, the training, it all comes down to this.
To be a winning team, you have to work like a winning team.
We have a job to do out here today.
Some people think it's about muscle, but it's really about heart. A lot of heart.
My team depends on me.
And my team is 50,000 strong. Looks like a lot of work's going into this.
Is what it feels like to be part of a team.
A winning team.
The action team.
Get in on the action at actionteam.org. Are you in?
Welcome back. We are joined now by Dr. Ernesto Abel-Santos, UNLV Biochemistry Professor. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
You are here to talk about C. diff, which is a very nasty bacterial infection in the gut after people have taken antibiotics. We'll talk a little bit about it in a minute, but first let's watch a video that explains it a little bit.
This is a big, big problem in hospital. We're talking about upwards of 500,000 cases a year. In the United States alone, causes about 20,000 deaths. And it's a $3 billion problem.
That's chemistry professor Dr. Ernesto Abel-Santos describing the havoc wreaked by Clostridium difficile, a bacterium found on the bed rails and other areas of a hospital room.
The problem with Clostridium difficile is that it forms spores. And these spores are very resistant. You cannot kill them with bleach, you cannot kill them with disinfectants, you cannot kill them with antibiotics. And they stay in the environment. They're like sand, they're like dust. And they stay in the environment, so you can have someone with Clostridium difficile infection today, and it will contaminate that room. 6 months later, another patient comes in and get infected by those spores that have been sitting there for 6 months.
Hospital patients are particularly vulnerable because they're taking antibiotics to treat another infection. The antibiotics kill the bad bacteria, but they also kill the good bacteria that live in the gut.
And that's when the spores of Clostridium difficile come in and germinate in the gut and causes what is called antibiotic-associated diarrhea.
To prevent the bacteria from taking hold in hospital patients, Dr. Abel-Santos created a compound to prevent the spores from germinating in the gut.
We found one compound in particular that we call CAMSA that is a very good inhibitor. So it inhibits the spore germination very, very well. So it doesn't detect. The spores, when you have that compound in, basically are blind to the environment. In a test tube, it works very well, but there's a saying that we use relating to Vegas. We say, what happens in a test tube stays in a test tube. You never know what's going to happen in actual living organisms. So we tested this compound in mice, and we tested these compounds in hamsters. And the results were amazing. So good that I actually had my students repeat them a few times before we leave them.
Working in this lab and working under the tutelage of Dr. Abel-Santos has been really fantastic experience for me as an undergraduate. So to be part of something that's recognized by the NIH to be given a grant for, an R01 grant, I believe it's absolutely wonderful.
Abel-Santos is pursuing a patent for his discovery and will continue to strive to make his compound more effective and more stable. But ultimately, his research will affect millions of people around the world, and it's happening at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas.
Well, there you go. Now we know all about it. But basically what you've done is created a compound that keeps the spores from germinating in the gut, right?
Correct. So the idea is that the spores is a seed. They don't really do anything to you. They have to germinate like any seed to become the fully grown bacteria. And that's what causes the infection. But if we block that germination process, then the spore basically just passes through your body and doesn't do anything to you.
So it usually follows a treatment with antibiotics.
Well, C. diff is triggered by antibiotics. So when you're taking antibiotics, it will kill the gut flora that you have, your gut microbes, the good ones, and then that's when C. diff can come in. So this is going to be together with an antibiotic treatment as a prevention method so that you don't get C. diff.
Wow. So you can cure the other problem that you had, that you were taking the antibiotics for in the first place. Okay, I understand you got interested in the bacterial spores with the letters containing anthrax arrived at news organizations and members of Congress right after 9/11. How does one go from, tell me about that, and then how does one go from that to this?
Well, so yes, that was original. When I started my independent career as an assistant professor, it was in the Albert Einstein College of Medicine in New York. I started there in August 2001, so 1 month before 9/11. So we just arrived there. We had a completely different set of projects in the lab, and then 9/11 happened. And after 9/11, we had the anthrax attacks. So we decided to change the focus of the lab, and we started working on bacterial spores. Especially, we started working with anthrax, and we still have projects in anthrax research, trying to understand how these bacteria that form spores, how do they germinate, how do they detect the environment, because basically the spore sits there for a long time and doesn't do anything but get in the right environment. In half an hour they're up and running.
Well, I know we're all scared to death of anthrax, but few of us know. But C. diff can be just as deadly, right?
C. diff is actually more deadly.
Wow.
the possibilities of you getting an anthrax or dying of anthrax is infinitesimal, right? Unless there's a bioterrorist attack.
Yeah, unless it comes in the mail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
C. diff is a present danger. It happens in the hospitals all the time. There's about 20,000 deaths a year in the U.S. alone of C. diff infection.
Wow, well, I hope you make a difference in that. You're also doing work with broiler chickens. Is this a continuation of this?
This is a similar project. So I don't know if you've heard that Tyson is going to go antibiotic-free. Tyson, the company that produces most of the chickens. McDonald's just announced that their products are going to be from antibiotic-free chickens. In broiler chickens, the problem is the opposite that in humans. If you don't give them antibiotics, they can get a disease called necrotic enteritis, which is similar to Clostridium difficile infection, but a different species. So now that these companies are going antibiotic-free, they're looking for a method to prevent that type of infection. So we actually had contact with Tyson, and they're very interested in this approach. We're going to be next month going to Colorado to do some testing in chickens.
Wow.
Some compounds that we have.
Fascinating. Keep up the good work. This is really interesting stuff.
Thank
It's
you.
been a fascinating show today. Ernesto, thank you so much. Appreciate it. That's going to do us for tonight. Thank you so much for being with us. We hope you'll join us again for our next edition of Research Files. I'm Gary Waddell. Have a nice evening.